Well, then there were two Super Rugby final this coming weekend. It is the Hurricanes at home for a third week in a row. What a cruisy ride they've had up against the Lions from Johannesburg, who have been the surprise package, really. Certainly for people over here, it was only playoff time we started to realise, oh, gee, the Lions are good. They just beat the Highlanders last week as well in the semi-finals. Makes me think, Pat Brittenden, we may have, should have probably watched a few more Lions games as the season went on.
Yeah, I have to say, credit to them, old rugby term, you know. A season of two halves, all that kind of stuff. Rugby was the winner of the day. I wonder how much they're regretting. Did they drop 23 players out to head to Argentina?
Yes,
because they could have had the final at home very easily.
That's exactly right. What they did was they decided for their final round robin game that they would send effectively their B side over to Argentina to play the Juarez. They ended up losing that game. If they had won it, they would have finished top of the table. Hurricanes second, which would have been a bit more travelling for the Canes. The Lions decided, look, we want our guys fresh for the first playoff game. We've never really been here before in terms of playoff footy. We want to win our quarterfinal. We're at home. We're going to do that. And so that's the decision that they came to in the end.
The interesting thing, if we just take one step back before we look forward, is the Chiefs and the Highlanders, who both lost last weekend. First of all, if you're a Highlander supporter, you've got to be pretty proud of your team. Champions last year, third this year, it's nothing to be embarrassed. I mean, we all want them to win.
Oh, it was a magnificent run.
Great season, especially the second half of the season, as they did last year.
Yeah.
But it seems that the weekend just going, the Highlanders and the Chiefs had the same issue where it just wasn't sticking. There was one bit missing. Normally the things that were working weren't working. They both seemed to play quite a similar game. And I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the Lions or the Hurricanes, but if all four had been on peak, it would have been an interesting weekend. I think that the Highlanders and the Chiefs, they misfired slightly, and that was enough to guarantee the win to the other two.
And look, it comes down to a couple of things. Home ground, that's one. That's a massive one. And just can't help it. The reason that becomes even more highlighted is the fact that you've got to travel. So teams are coming from South Africa. That's just, or to South Africa. There's no debate about that. The ideal is that you have, if you travel, then you get sort of an extra amount of time in there. But that would mean the competition would just go on forever. I was speaking with former All Black Paul Miller earlier this morning, and he was saying that would be the ideal. The travel is just too hard. I said, who's going to win the final? He goes, well, Hurricanes. He goes, they haven't had to travel anywhere. They're at home. It's a laydown. He can't even see it being, that close, to be brutally honest.
Well, I've always been a bit of a proponent of home court advantage, NBA more, isn't as big a deal as they say, because what happens, the reason you get home court advantage is because you're a better team. You've had a better season.
You've got to play it somewhere, don't you?
So I've always thought there's too much made of home court advantage when you're playing in like a court in a stadium, which is the same everywhere. However,
there's variables, isn't there?
When you're playing an outdoor sport and you have to travel thousands of miles, and there's a time zone difference, and there's a temperature difference, it certainly could make a difference.
There's an air difference, altitude, for example. Did you see those? I almost felt sorry for the Highlanders at the end of that game. They had no gas left in the tank. The legs had gone. They just tried. I remember one ball went in behind them, and I saw in the replays about 3 or 4 of them just sort of looking back, going, oh my God, do I have to chase this back? Do I have to do this? Can I just raise one more point about the referee for this coming game?
Yep.
So you've got a New Zealand side versus a South African side, okay? Would the logical choice be an Australian referee?
Of course.
And the best referee in the competition by a mile, which has been Angus Gardner? No, let's give it to a New Zealand referee. Makes no sense. And the best referee's on the sideline, Gardner's on the sideline. And Glenn Jackson, while he began his refereeing career, and I thought this guy's fantastic, the game's flowed, he's a former player, he let everything go. You get to now, I don't know, he's been shoulder tapped for higher honours. He is going by the letter of the law. He just doesn't have the same feel for the game as he used to.
Yeah, it is an interesting decision. Hopefully it'll make no difference. If the Highlanders win by 20, the Hurricanes win, wishful thinking. Then it won't be a question if they win by 1, maybe it will. The other thing I wanted to throw at you was after the weekend just gone where we saw all 3 number 10s, and you and I have had this conversation before this year.
Yeah.
I have to say, the last time we had this conversation, I have to say Beauden Barrett is the number 1, number 10 in the country at the moment, followed by Lima, followed by Cruden.
I don't, you know what, I think, as you've said, what are you doing? Did you pick that?
No,
we agreed. Yeah,
First time ever we've agreed on number 10.
It is actually, after a number of conversations about it. I think in the playoffs, just to wrap this up, the playoffs have shown that clear pecking order.